Subsequent to the publication of the article in January 2009, you refer to threats. Would you detail those? You begin in paragraph 10, and I just need to confirm the incidents you refer to in paragraph 10, did those occur subsequent to the publication of the January 2009 article?
Chair, it's a long time ago, but that is my best recollection, that that article specifically caused discomfort and anger at the Bosasa group, and that both these episodes followed after that publication. Okay. Definitely while I was employed by the Mail and Guardian.
You refer to the first group of threats in paragraph 10. Would you tell the Chair, please, what occurred?
Chair, there was a period during that time when I started receiving calls on my cellular phone. These calls, there was a lot of these calls. They came during the day and night, early hours of the morning. Sometimes the calls came from a number that was visible on my phone. I remember still saving these numbers after the calls, using terms like Bosasa Angry 1, Bosasa Angry 2. And there were also unknown numbers, so I couldn't see the number of the caller, and then also some landlines. The purpose of these calls, or the message of these calls, were always a person claiming that they are a Bosasa employee, and then saying to me that I, Adriaan, are threatening their jobs, that I will cause them to lose their jobs, that I must stop my writing, I must stop my reportage on Bosasa, and there were also some of the callers, I remember quite vividly, accusing me of racism, that I was only doing these articles because I'm white and I'm a racist. There were a number of these calls, and it was definitely during a specific period. I clearly remember that I blocked some of these numbers, obviously not to receive the calls from them again. It was obviously upsetting and perturbing receiving these calls late at night or in the early hours of the morning. Also profanities used during some of these calls. If I may say, Chair, some of the calls, for example, said, I must stop my shit, I must stop writing about Bosasa. And so it was really a kind of aggressive tone from the callers that made it very clear that I am endangering their livelihoods and should stop this nonsense.
And what was your reaction when receiving these calls? And I refer specifically to your reaction to the content of the calls.
Chair, I think if you become a journalist, it comes with the territory that you will have to grow thick skin. I had a thinner skin then. It was 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago. But it was upsetting. I tried to explain to these callers what the purpose of a journalist is in society and what I was trying to do with my investigations into corruption, that ultimately the poor of the country are the main victims of corruption, specifically by this company then. But it was upsetting. It made me feel threatened. I didn't know. I knew that this company obviously had lots of tenders in correctional services and other security areas, so I didn't know to what extent they would actually go to threaten me. It was upsetting, it was perturbing to hear these calls.
Did you receive, and we're not asking you to disclose your sources, but did you receive any information from your sources in regard to how your number had been distributed?
Yes, Chair. I, at that stage, had cultivated a number of sources within the Bosasa group. I asked a specific source about these calls, and it was confirmed to me that my cell phone number had been distributed in the group to employees, and that employees were tasked to call me and threaten me. And the name of one specific director was named.
In paragraph 17 of your affidavit, Mr. Basson, you deal with what you refer to as the second episode. Please tell the Chair about that second episode.
Chair, in February 2009, she's now my wife, she was then, I think, my girlfriend, and myself were on holiday, and I remember us driving at night. when I received a phone call from a visible number, but it wasn't a number that I had saved on my phone. The person on the other side of the line was a woman who didn't introduce herself by name, but said that she was a colleague or somehow involved in the media, and that she wanted to warn me about my investigations into Bosasa. I was driving and I had my phone on speakerphone, and she then proceeded to attempt to convince me that she's helping me by saying things like, it's very dangerous what she's doing, what I'm doing. There's a much bigger story behind the Bosasa investigation. And then she interrupted herself continuously by saying to me, I just need to make sure that I'm talking to the right person, and I just need to make sure that I can trust you. Are you Adriaan Basson with ID number? Do you live at this address? Are these your friends? And are these your family members? And she proceeded to read a quite accurate list of names of friends and family members. Do your friends and your family members, do they do these professions? Are they lawyers? Are they engineers, etc.? Chair, she also, it was clear to me at that point of our conversation that she was reading from some kind of what I would refer as an intelligence document, that some intelligence was done on me, and that the real purpose of the call was not to help me, but to scare me. She proceeded to tell me how dangerous Bosasa was, how scared I must be, that I'm very brave for a young man, was some of her quotes. Some of the other personal information, Chair, that I can remember she disclosed to me was my place of birth, for example, continuously saying, are you sure you were born here in this town? She also had study records of mine, of my tertiary studies, where I studied, what I studied. And it was clear to me that this information was obtained through some kind of intelligence operation. I kept her talking. It was interesting to hear what she had to say. But after the telephone call of about 18 to 19 minutes, I said to her, look, I will phone you when I get back to Johannesburg, where I was living at the time, and try and set up a meeting. Again, Chair, I was perturbed by the call, the fact that someone knew all this personal information about me, knew about my family members, where I stayed, where they stayed, what I studied, where I was born, what my ID number was. I then, on advice of my clever wife, went home and put in the cell phone number from which she called just into a Google search. So I just literally went onto Google and typed in the number.
Before you go there, just two brief questions, if I may. You know best of the context of the call, its content. What did you conclude about the purpose of the call?
Chair, my conclusion was that this was a Bosasa operation to intimidate and scare me.
And were you warned not to speak to anybody about the conversation?
Indeed, Chair. She warned me with words like, I will kill you if you tell anyone about our conversation. Now, if I speak to, it's not the type of language I would use, but I know that people sometimes use that phrase jokingly. It was not jokingly at all. It was in a context of a much larger, longer conversation, very ominous type of language, even the tone of her voice, very hush, trying to supposedly help me.
All right. Then you say that you conducted a Google search?
Yes, Chair, and to my surprise, I quickly found out the identity of the caller, someone by the name of Benedicta Dube. She was by then a public relations consultant for a company called Igagu Media, which I think I referred to in my affidavit. I didn't know Ms. Dube. I think I may have heard of her by then. But I quickly established that she was, in fact, a journalist. She used to work for reputable publications like the Financial Mail and at ETV before. But that she was now in public relations.
And when you say now, you mean at the time of the call in January 2009?
Correct, Chair.
The information that was related to you over that 17-minute period of the telephone call you've referred to, did that information all fall within the public domain?
No, Chair. I, as an investigative journalist myself, we make use of a plethora of public sources to find information for our own investigations. And, you know, the detail of the information shared, for example, the addresses of where I've lived or the occupations and names of my friends and family, that's not something you can Google.